The first Omega level threat has finally been released for Marvel's Avengers, and this new mission offers a greater difficulty spike, a focus on teamwork, and revisits the final mission of the Taking Aim DLC. So on today's video, I'm going to be giving my early thoughts on the first Omega level threat.
Stars and Stripes!
Hello and welcome to another Carrot Scraps video, and by another, I mean the 72nd. So, of course, the obligatory disclaimers up front. First of all, this is an early thoughts video. I haven't done one of these since the beta of Marvel's Avengers, I think, but I feel like it's more appropriate now than ever. I've lovingly started referring to my Marvel's Avengers reviews as better late than never, and to kind of get out more quicker videos or quicker thoughts, I thought we could do more early thoughts videos. So I did write down some details that stuck out to me, and I'll be going over them and reviewing them, but generally speaking, this video will be mostly unscripted and will consist of my first thoughts after playing. So just keep in mind that this is not a full review, and this is by no means a comprehensive look at my feelings on this Omega level threat. In addition, there's a big chance that I will get certain details about the game or the update wrong, so just keep that in mind as well. This is not a researched review, this is just my early thoughts. My ideas and thoughts about this content will definitely change over time. In addition, I probably won't be able to express all of the thoughts that I have about this Omega level threat right now. So if I did have thoughts that I didn't get to express or ideas that changed, I'll try to put that in the next review. Now, I am working on a full review of this Omega level threat, and I should be releasing it in the future, unless I decide later that I've said everything I needed to say in this video. I don't want to be redundant with my videos after all, so just keep that in mind in the future. Secondly, I just played the Omega level threat for the first time. I was away for a while and only got the chance to play it today, and played through it twice, or 2.8 times depending on your perspective. I guess we'll get to that. Lastly, it's been a while since I've played Taking Aim, so if my praise of this Omega level threat kind of is just praise of the original mission, excuse that for now. Anyway, without further ado, let's start talking about my early thoughts. I feel like I almost have to have like two separate sections of the video where I talk about the early parts of the mission and then I talk about the Super Adaptoid fight specifically, because they are two completely different monsters in my opinion. But for now, let's keep it to the early parts of the mission. I really liked the increased difficulty in this area. I also really enjoyed the time limit restrictions. I know a lot of people weren't super into this, but for me it worked. And I will admit that I wasn't necessarily thrilled with the idea that these tachyon time bubbles were going to be a part of the gameplay in this Omega level threat. For those of you who don't know, there's a timer running through most of the mission where you have to either defeat enemies or collect these time bubbles to prevent yourself from gaming over. And this has been a piece of gameplay that's been seen in other more difficult missions in the game. So again, I was a little apprehensive about that detail, but seeing it executed here is really great. I think the increased difficulty and stuff like the time limit restrictions force your team to take on different objectives. And because of stuff like that, this Omega level threat made it feel like I was playing with a real team for the first time. A team that really had to split up and tackle certain objectives, but also had to use certain skills that other heroes didn't have. I think that's something that's true of most of this Omega level threat, and it's consistent throughout the design. And I do think that the increased difficulty is part of what makes that teamwork so strong. Now, I felt the increased difficulty even in the early parts of this level. In general, I'm not somebody who necessarily needs to play games on the hardest difficulty. I play games for fun. I don't really need to feel the hardest challenge, but I will admit that it did feel nice to be challenged in this Omega level threat, especially because I felt like my heroic abilities were more useful than ever. There were multiple moments where I felt like I was hanging on by a thread, and those heroic abilities really helped me. Or I felt anxious because I didn't have my heroic abilities charged yet, so there was really cool dynamics with the difficulty. One of the criticisms that come to mind when I first think about this Omega level threat is the time bubbles. Even though I liked their implementation in this OLT, I do think I would like to see more variation when it comes to mission design in the future. Maintaining that timer definitely did apply the pressure for this mission, which was good, but I just want to see more creative mission design in the future. Again, not the worst thing in the world, just kind of a minor criticism. We don't really get to see this tachyon rift mechanic very frequently, but it's just something to keep in mind for the future. And the other criticism that I had was that I felt like I was going from objective to objective, and there were kind of these pockets of enemies in between these objectives, and I just kind of wish that there were more reasons for me to fight those little pockets. Sometimes I felt like I was cheesing the game game or skipping over content if I was just running to the objective on my screen. And I don't think that's the case. I think you're meant to go for the objective, and I think those enemies are just meant to be optional or like set dressing for the environment. But again, there's a part of me that just felt bad about skipping over them, and I think it would be cool if there were either reasons to engage with them or if they made it more difficult for you to pass. So that way, when you did actually pass them, you felt like you were really skipping over a hard part of the level and saving some time. Kind of like in a speedrun or something like that. Anyway, again, not the biggest criticism in the world, but just something that came to mind while I was playing. And before we get into the Super Adaptoid fight, I just wanted to mention that the Warbot sequence is fantastic. I feel like a lot of people's criticisms about robots in Marvel's Avengers takes away from the attention that the Warbot could potentially get. I think there's a lot of praise to be had here. There wasn't necessarily anything different or unique about the Warbot fight that really caused me to reflect on its inclusion, but I just think it's a consistent, challenging, and engaging fight when compared to some of the other boss fights in Marvel's Avengers. And I wanted to bring that up again. Anyway, let's talk more specifically about the Super Adaptoid fight. Now, full transparency, I think on my first run, I game overed 3 times on this boss fight, forcing my team to revert to the checkpoint and fight the Super Adaptoid again. And then on my second run of this Omega level threat, I just game overed repeatedly and actually didn't get to complete it. The excuse I give is that I didn't have a full team. I guess we were playing so long that the 2 other players who were with my strike force decided they either had other things to do or they didn't want to play anymore. And I was really glad that I was able to play twice so that way I could have those 2 very different experiences. Because during that first fight, I really felt the difficulty. I really felt myself sweat, but I felt so rewarded when I finally defeated the Super Adaptoid after that 3rd fight. But during my second run, I won't lie, it was very disappointing to not get the victory against the Super Adaptoid. I said already in the video that I think this mission really prioritizes teamwork, and I think that's really fantastic. I think that's great for a live service multiplayer game. So the fact that I couldn't complete the Omega level threat with 2 of my team members missing definitely does make sense to me, and I think that's part of that feeling, you know what I mean? But again, I won't lie, I was definitely disappointed that I had to finish that mission without completing it. And this is where it totally makes sense when you see a lot of players asking for a feature which is, join in progress. Because if you have those players leave at the end of that boss battle and you're just yourself with another person like I was, you really have very little chance of completing that challenge. And you either have to get really good really fast or you have to end the mission. So I hope the developers are at least considering join in progress, especially since players have been asking for it so much this weekend. But generally speaking, the fight itself was fantastic. Especially with my full team, I had a lot of fun fighting the Super Adaptoid. In addition, more than ever, I really feel that this Omega level threat is rewarding people for making specific builds. It felt vital to have a character like Kamala Khan on my team who was built around support, and I was really happy that one of our team members was playing that support character. I think that's something that's really interesting that we haven't really seen in the game yet, and that I hope we get to see in the future. It's really cool to see the addition of support characters rewarded so much, but I'd also like to see other types of builds rewarded when it comes to these Omega level threats. I'm not sure exactly how they would implement that, I don't really have any ideas yet, but it's something that I would like to see in the future. Because again, it's awesome that support characters are vital to these teams, but I kind of would like to see other types of builds be rewarded and be prioritized. Talking more about the Super Adaptoid fight, I really like when they multiply and kind of divide your attention. I felt like I was scrambling a lot during this mission, but this was one of those moments that really got me to try and focus. Suddenly there are 3 Super Adaptoids and I'm just like, oh no, I don't want to waste my heroic ability on one of these clones. I want to focus on the main, antagonist. So I really liked that, and I also just liked the visual aesthetic of having this really cool model multiple times. I really liked the shield section as well, where you can take cover for a temporary amount of time. I'm pretty sure it's specific to this Omega level threat, and I thought it was really cool. For the same reason that I just mentioned about the cloned Super Adaptoids, it kind of causes you to scramble for a little bit. I have to get to that cover as soon as possible to save what little HP I have left. And keeping in that same vein, I also really loved these spawning turrets. I think generally speaking, turrets aren't a huge threat in the game, but having them just spawn randomly in certain locations really felt dangerous. And at least for me as a player, when I first saw these turrets spawning in the boss battle, I was like, I have to take these off the field as soon as possible to protect my team. In my head, I was like, this is my job. This is how I'm going to keep everybody safe. And I thought that kind of decision making, again, is really fantastic and great design. I also liked the segments where the screen screen turned black and white. At first I was kind of confused by this and I didn't really understand what was happening, but then I kind of thought about it critically for a second and I was like, oh wait, they're kind of turning what you know on its head. A lot of your cues in the game are based on color. You're looking for red, you're looking for yellow, to make certain decisions, and turning the screen black and white is a fun little way to just kind of shake the player and say, you're not safe anymore. I could definitely see that kind of mechanic being unfair or cheap, but I don't feel like it was overused in this boss battle, and so I really loved it. Then when it comes to criticisms about the Super Adaptoid fight, I did have this weird moment where I was knocked out and forced to spectate the other players. I guess it was possible that I was knocked out too many times during the mission, but I don't think that that's the case. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was just a bug where I took a weird amount of damage and then suddenly just popped out of existence. I even tried to get myself to spectate intentionally and couldn't get it to happen after this. It only happened that one time, and I'm not sure if it was intentional. And then the other criticism that I think is worth talking about in terms of Omega level threats is the fact that this is just a mission from the DLC campaign. Now, first of all, I think I would like to see a villain sector of the Super Adaptoid and an Omega level threat. I think there's room for both of them in the game, and I don't think it needed to be an either-or situation. Secondly, I definitely understand the criticism that this Omega level threat would have been received much better if it was its own mission instead of an amped-up mission from the DLC. Of course, I would like to see a brand new mission with new mechanics that isn't based on prior content. I do think that that's worth talking about and discussing, but we're also getting more new content in the future when it comes to Omega level threats, so I don't think this needs to be talked about too much. Especially since, again, Avengers isn't really unique in this regard. I've said it before, and this definitely won't be the last time I say it, but this design for the Omega level threat where they're just making an existing mission harder reminds me a lot of the Doom Master levels from Doom Eternal. If you're unfamiliar, Doom Eternal has been releasing Master levels since the release of Doom Eternal, and they're just more difficult versions of the base campaign missions, and soon to be some of the DLC missions. So there is an audience for this kind of content, and Avengers isn't alone when it comes to this kind of design. So of course, I would love a brand new mission built from the ground up, but at the same time, I don't really mind the fact that we just got an amped up version of an existing mission. As I've said a couple times, I think there's room in the game for both. Also, playing this Omega level threat brought up a criticism that I heard a lot at launch that I didn't necessarily agree with or felt like aligned with my personal gameplay. A lot of players felt like there was so much on the screen, so many effects, or so many things happening that it was hard to focus. I rarely, if ever, felt this way, but while playing this Omega level threat, I actually did kind of feel this way. Especially during the Super Adaptoid fight, there were times where I just was trusting that my character was doing what I wanted them to, and I just kind of took a step back and was like, wow, there's a lot going on my screen. It wasn't enough to disrupt my enjoyment of this content, but it was something that I wanted to bring up. And I would definitely like to see potential changes brought up in the future that could avoid certain confusion while playing. I'm not sure how that would go about, but that's something that I would like to see. So those are my early thoughts on the first Omega level threat for Marvel's Avengers. Was it well worth the long wait? Well, I'm really not sure. What I can say for sure is that this Omega level threat is really fun, at least for me, so maybe this varies depending on who you are as a player. But I will say that the amount of time that we waited to get repurposed content from the DLC campaign is worth talking about. As I said already, I don't mind that type of design when it comes to these missions, and I think how I feel about Omega level threats in general and this one specifically will depend on how long we have to wait for the next one and what that next one will actually look like. Hopefully we won't have to wait too long, and hopefully the wait will be well worth it. At any rate, I'm excited to see new content in the game, especially content that I enjoy, and I'm encouraged by the words from the development team who insist that this is just the beginning of this kind of mission. Now, as a quick reminder before I go, Marvel's Avengers is having a free weekend right now. So if for whatever reason you follow my content but haven't played Marvel's Avengers yet, this is a perfect opportunity for you to try the game. I think especially if you're a Marvel fan, there's a lot for you to enjoy in the game. And my biggest personal pros of Marvel's Avengers is the combat design and the variety between each character. And speaking of characters, we're about to have 9 playable characters once Black Panther is finally added to the game. There is a lot to be excited about when it comes to the world of Marvel's Avengers. The game is on sale right now. The marketplace has tremendous sales at the moment. There's new content coming in August, and the game is free to play over the weekend. Not to mention, a feature that players have wanted for a really long time has finally been permanently added to the game: the ability to play as the same hero on the same strike force. And of course, all these new players will have the opportunity to play this new Omega level triple threat, a super challenging mission that prioritizes teamwork amongst your strike team. So again, if you're curious at all about the game, I highly recommend you check out Marvel's Avengers. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. I want to thank you so much for watching. If for some reason you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and to subscribe to my channel for more. As regular viewers of my channel know, I make a variety of content here, and I'm always gonna make the kinds of videos that I want to make, but if you see something you enjoy, let me know, and I'll try to prioritize that kind of content in the future. I'm really excited to say that I'm doing a stream in collaboration with Crystal Dynamics, Play Avengers, and a ton of other fantastic Marvel's Avengers content creators in the community. I'll be starting at 4 p.m. PT and 7 p.m. EST on July 31st. I'll be mostly playing as Black Widow, talking about my favorite skins, and just celebrating everything we have to talk about in the Avengers community right now. So if you want to check that out, check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/carrotscraps. And all my other social media, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram are at carrotscraps as well. I want to thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. There's not going to be any jokes in this one. Maybe some casual jokes, but I'm not doing any, not messing around with any characters, not writing any goofs down. In fact, you know what? I have a goof right here. Just erased it, because we're not doing any jokes in this one. It's over.